It happened a couple of years ago, right before school ended, the last day of 8th grade. It was exactly what you'd expect. A mix of excitement, bittersweet goodbyes, and the frantic scribbling of signatures and cheesy messages in yearbooks. Laughter echoed through the halls. Some kids cried. Others acted like it was just another day. My middle school was massive, over 1,000 students. To keep the chaos in check, teachers collected our yearbooks and passed them from classroom to classroom, letting everyone sign whoever's book they wanted. Naturally, this left the door wide open for pranks and sometimes cruelty. I knew a few kids who took the opportunity to write cruel, anonymous things in yearbooks they didn't like. When I finally got mine back, I started flipping through it, smiling at the goofy inside jokes and doodles from my friends. But halfway through, my breath caught. There was a signature beneath a student's photo, a kid I knew I'd never seen before. Samuel Robinson III. It wasn't just the unfamiliar name that sent a chill down my spine. It was the message, HAGS, I'll be seeing you again. Short, unsettling, almost like a warning. I stared at the page, heart thudding, trying to recall if I'd ever met this kid. But no, he wasn't in any of my classes. I would have remembered a name like that. It had to be some mix-up or a joke. I shrugged it off. The school year was over. What could I do? That night I had a sleepover in the basement with my 3 best friends. Kevin, David, and Kieran. We devoured chips, played Call of Duty, and goofed around on my dad's old rowing machine. My parents' bedroom was 3 floors up, so we weren't worried about the noise. It was just before 2 a.m. when everything changed. Knock, knock, knock. A sharp, rhythmic knock echoed from the storm door at the back of the basement. We froze. The room went dead silent. None of us moved. Who the hell knocks on a basement storm door at 2 a.m.? Kieran, being the loudmouth, blurted out, "Who's there?" I shot him a death stare. He just announced we were down there, to someone who might not have even known. A long pause, then a muffled voice, cheerful and high-pitched. "Come around to the back door." It sounded friendly, like a classmate inviting himself in to join the party. My friends were weirdly amused. "Come on," David said. "Let's check it out." I didn't want to, but they pressured me. So we crept upstairs, hearts pounding. At the back door, I peeked through the thin window beside it and froze. Standing just under the dim porch light was a figure I instantly recognized. Samuel Robinson III, the same kid from the yearbook, same face, same empty smile. My friends started unlocking the door. God knows why, but I slammed it shut. "I know who he is," I whispered. "He's not supposed to be here." They looked confused until I told them about the yearbook message. That sobered them up real fast. But Sam saw us. He started waving us over, gesturing toward the side window like he wanted to talk. Against all logic, I cracked open the kitchen window just an inch. My friends stood behind me, quiet. He walked over, that same creepy smile plastered on his face. "So you got my message," he said softly. Then he told me he'd always watched me from afar, that we could have been good friends. His voice was calm, smooth, even sweet. I nodded, just to keep him calm. But my insides were ice. I had to ask, "How did you know where I live?" He paused. His smile stayed, but he said nothing. Then David, unable to keep his mouth shut, muttered, "Creepy stalker, get lost." That was the trigger. Sam's expression shifted like a mask sliding off. His head tilted, then twisted. His smile disappeared, replaced by something feral, hateful. He screamed. He shouted how he hated my friends, how we all deserved to die, how my ex hated me, how he knew things, private things, he had no business knowing. Then, with no warning, he lunged at the window, trying to pry it open with his hands. I slammed it shut just in time. He banged on the glass, growling and snarling like a wild animal. The sound was bone-chilling. A second later, the lights flicked on. My parents were running downstairs, shouting. Sam bolted. My dad ran after him in his boxers, but came back empty-handed. "No sign of him," he said. "We told them everything, but for reasons I still don't understand. They didn't call the police. They said they'd deal with it through the school. The next morning they contacted the administration. That's when we learned the most disturbing part. Samuel Robinson III had been expelled weeks before school ended. He wasn't supposed to be there on the last day. His yearbook photo was only there because the books were printed earlier. He had snuck into school just to write that message. Worse, no one could track him down. It was like he and his parents had vanished. No address, no phone number, no record. The school tried to hush it up, but the truth never left me. He knew where I lived. He knew personal things, and no one knew how. Some think he was mentally unstable, that he'd fixated on me. Maybe. I'll never know. But even now, years later, I still live in the same house. And sometimes, when the night is just a bit too quiet, I wonder if I'll see him again. My friend Garrett isn't just a little unhinged. He's the kind of guy who treats being unstable like it's a personality trait. He picks fights for fun, runs his mouth like it's an Olympic sport, and spends more time in the gym than he does at home. I could tell you 5 different stories that prove how reckless he is. But this one's different. Because this one nearly got me killed. It happened just a couple of weeks ago. May 2019, our last day of senior year. Graduation was still a few days away, so we were stuck hanging around campus. And as tradition demanded, every senior was completely plastered by sundown. We gathered beneath the old campus clock tower where every class before us had celebrated. And at 10 p.m., that courtyard was packed. 1,000 students shouting, drinking, crying, laughing. Some were saying goodbye forever, others just trying to forget final. It felt bittersweet until it turned bitter. There were 6 of us sticking together that night. Me, CTRN, and of course, Garrett. We lived off campus, so after the party started winding down, we began the long walk back through the city. At that hour, the streets are always crawling with homeless folks. Most of them don't even notice you. They're too far gone. But this one, he saw us, and he wanted us to see him. He stood right in the middle of the crosswalk, blocking our path like some kind of demented gatekeeper, yelling nonsense into the night. We tried to curve around him quietly. All of us, except Garrett. Garrett couldn't resist. He started shouting back, "Get the hell out of the street! Stop bothering people," like he was the neighborhood sheriff. The guy stepped toward us, not fast, but deliberate, like a warning. We immediately stepped in, trying to defuse the situation before it exploded. The guy stopped, kept yelling, but didn't come closer. I grabbed Garrett, told him to knock it off. He shrugged me off, and then he charged, sprinting full speed like a maniac, screaming like a banshee. The guy bolted. Honestly, as awful as it was, we laughed. Picture someone scattering pigeons in a park. That kind of chaos. It was wrong, but the booze made it seem funny. We turned back toward home, thinking the night's drama was behind us. It wasn't. A few blocks down, we noticed him again, following us. He kept his distance, but he was there. When we looked back, he started yelling again. Something about us making a huge mistake and calling a niche, whatever that meant. We started taunting him, thinking we could scare him off. But if anything, it only made him more erratic. I remember saying, we shouldn't lead him to the house. Everyone agreed. Everyone except Garrett. Before we could even react, he darted off again, chasing the guy for a second time. He disappeared into the night laughing, then rejoined us with a smug grin like he'd just scored a touchdown. We made it home. This time, the streets behind us were empty. We partied a little harder. Too hard. The kind of night that turns into a blur of music, bad decisions, and blackout drinks. I don't even know what time it was when I stumbled out onto the porch to grab my DoorDash. That's when I saw it. The side gate was open. We always tied it shut with a piece of twine. Nothing fancy, but it kept it from swinging loose. That twine was dangling, unknotted. That gate hadn't opened itself. It took me about 2 seconds to remember the tweaker. I wish I'd gone back inside. Woken up my friends, called the cops. Instead, my drunk brain thought, let's check it out. I crept around the house, hands shaking, trying to stay upright. The backyard was dark, too dark, and as I turned the corner, the rope hit my throat. It wrapped tight. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. My feet kicked against the dirt as I flailed wildly, desperate for air. My attacker didn't say a word, just pulled harder. I was dying. In a panic, I launched my legs backward with everything I had. I felt him lose balance. We crashed to the ground. The rope loosened just enough for me to suck in a ragged breath, but he wasn't done. He clawed at my face like an animal, and I felt my skin tear open. I could feel the warm blood streaking down my cheeks. I punched, thrashed, twisted, anything to get him off. Finally, I broke free. He scrambled to his feet and vanished into the night, leaving nothing behind but silence and pain. I ended up in the hospital. The cuts weren't deep, but the doctors made sure I got every vaccine and shot imaginable. The cops took a report, but didn't care much. I was moving out in a week, anyway. The worst part? The cuts were still healing during graduation. Every single one of my photos has them. Those red, jagged reminders of how close I came to not making it. Garrett was weirdly quiet after that. He took me to dinner, apologized genuinely. I don't hold it against him, not fully, but I hope I hope he learned something. Because some people really do have nothing to lose. And the next time someone follows us home, I might not be so lucky. It was supposed to be the best day of their lives. June 6th, the last day of high school at Graybridge High. The final moments of sitting in uncomfortable desks, listening to droning announcements, pretending to care about equations and essays. The clock ticked toward 2:30 p.m., the official release into summer freedom, and the hallways were practically vibrating with anticipation. Backpacks were zipped, sneakers were bouncing, and seniors had Sharpied goodbye messages on each other's shirts. The school felt alive, pulsing with joy. Then the clock struck 2:30, and nothing happened. No bell, no announcement, just silence. Everyone waited, a beat, then two. Laughter started to ripple down the halls. Maybe the bell's broken? Mr. Hartley, the biology teacher, opened his door and peeked out. We're still on the clock, folks, he said, forcing a smile. Hang tight. He disappeared back inside. Students shrugged, chuckled, and kept texting. A few headed to the main doors. That's when the weird started. The front doors wouldn't budge. Neither would the side exits, not even the emergency doors near the gym, all locked. Ben Stanton, one of the linebackers, shouldered a door so hard he nearly cracked it. But the metal didn't even creak. It was like the whole school had become a sealed tomb. Lisa Moreno tried opening a window in the third-floor art room. It wouldn't open. None of them would. Then she screamed, because on the other side of the glass, where she'd seen the lawn that morning, was now a brick wall. A solid, gray-bricked wall, as if the window had never existed, as if it was always part of a much larger prison. Phones stopped working, 0 bars, not even Wi-Fi. The emergency intercom buzzed and spat static. Then a voice spoke, old, mechanical, female, but off, like someone trying to sound human. Attendance has not been completed. No one may leave until all students are accounted for. Students looked at each other. Nervous laughter turned into cold sweat. Whispers started to swirl like smoke. What the hell does that mean? That's when Kevin Lurie vanished. He'd been standing by his locker 1 second and gone the next. His books clattered to the floor. His nameplate vanished from the locker door. The photos inside? Gone. No one could remember what he looked like, not even his girlfriend. What's Kevin's last name? Someone asked. Who's Kevin? Someone else replied. And just like that, a person ceased to exist. not just from sight, but from memory. Only a few people seemed to notice, fewer with each disappearance. Panic set in. Chaos erupted. Students banged on doors, screamed at the windows, tried to call 911 even though their phones were dead. And the voice came again. Please remain calm. Graybridge High requires full attendance. Roll call continues. By 3:15 p.m., nearly 24 students had disappeared. A handful of kids had barricaded themselves in the AV room, led by Hannah Blake, the valedictorian. She'd always been the quiet one, but now she was flipping through old yearbooks, her eyes wide with a growing realization. There was a fire, she whispered, 10 years ago, in the old gym. Nobody remembered it. Not at first, but then scattered fragments came back. Graybridge used to have a second gym. It caught fire during a storm, a freak lightning strike, faulty sprinkler system. They said nobody was hurt, but Hannah turned the yearbook to a faded page. 5 faces, sophomore class of 2015, circled in red ink. There, she said. They were marked absent that day. That's what the newspaper said. Unaccounted for. They died in the fire. But no one ever corrected the roll. She looked up. Her voice dropped. I think they want us to join them. Outside, it got darker. Not like evening, but as if something was smothering the sunlight. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Lockers buzzed faintly. Somewhere, a piano played a single key over and over again. Desks in classrooms began moving by themselves. One by one, they scraped across the floor to empty spots, filling seats for students who weren't there. Each time a desk clicked into place, someone else vanished. Mark Patel, a junior, remembered a story his grandfather told him about names and spirits. That you only vanish when no one remembers you. That some ghosts are more than angry. They're lonely. They're rewriting the school, he muttered. Fixing attendance. What do you mean? Asked Sarah, a sophomore clutching his arm. They're not killing us. They're enrolling us, filling in the blanks. By 4 p.m., maybe 50 students were left. The halls echoed with whispers, the kind you couldn't quite hear, but felt in your bones. And then they found the classroom, room 2B. It had been closed off for years. No one used it, but the door was open now. Inside, 5 desks, all scorched, 5 seats, 5 yearbook photos hanging above. Each one flickered and glitched, as if trapped between print and memory. In the center of the room stood a roll call clipboard. Hannah walked in, heart pounding. She looked at the list. The last names were written in shaky, almost childlike cursive. Then she saw her own. Hannah Blake, absent. No, she whispered. I'm right here. But as she said it, her name began to fade from the paper. She backed away, but the room pulled at her, invisible strings coiling around her legs. A desk creaked open behind her. She screamed, and someone yanked her back. Mark and Sarah dragged her from the room as the door slammed shut. The clipboard vanished. The walls bled letters. Attendance must be complete. Somewhere on the intercom, an old school bell finally rang. Not 2:30, but 4:15. It sounded like it was underwater. By 4:45 p.m., only 12 students were left. Sarah noticed the class photo hanging near the trophy case. The 2024 graduating class. She pointed at it, horrified. The photo was changing. Every few seconds, new faces faded in. Not smiling, not posing, just standing there, pale, blank-eyed. The background wasn't a gym anymore. It looked like a burned-out ruin. They were being added, one by one. Mark led a desperate search. There had to be a way out, a forgotten fire exit, a hidden tunnel, an answer. That's when they heard the crying. It came from the basement, the old records room, locked for years. They found the door open. Inside were filing cabinets, rows and rows of student records. But many were half-burned, blackened pages with missing names. A small figure sat on the floor. A girl, hair matted, uniform scorched, eyes like smoke. She looked up. "I didn't mean to be late," she whispered. "I was just in the bathroom. When the fire started, they marked me absent. But I was here." Mark stepped forward, carefully. "What's your name?" "Emily," she said. "Emily Ray, class of 2015. Sarah gasped. "She's one of the 5. The girl nodded slowly. "We waited for roll call, but they never said our names. We never got to leave." Tears welled in her hollow eyes. "So we made a new list. Outside the records room, the halls started twisting. Lockers melted into walls. Classrooms looped. Walk through one, and you ended up right back where you started. A living maze." Emily looked at Mark. "You can help us." "How?" he asked, voice cracking. "Finish the roll call. Say our names. Make it count." It was 5 p.m. now. The lights were almost gone. Only 6 students remained. Mark carried Emily's record into the PA room. He turned on the system, his fingers trembling, and read the names. Emily Ray, David Monroe, Jessica Klein, Brian Lowry, Lila Dean, present, 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 present. He waited, then added, "You were never forgotten." The silence afterward was deafening. Then the final bell rang, loud, clear, sharp. The walls trembled. The windows cracked open, not into brick, but into fresh summer air. Doors groaned, then clicked, unlocked. The lights stopped flickering. Only 4 students walked out of Graybridge High that evening. Mark, Sarah, Hannah, and Ben. The rest were never found. Their names erased. But the next morning the school was closed for repairs. And the new principal found something odd in the PA room. A yearbook, open to a single page, with 5 photos circled, and underneath them, in neat red ink, attendance completed. Willowside High was a place full of traditions. Pep rallies in the fall, senior pranks in the spring, and the leather-bound yearbook every senior received on their final day. The books were beautiful. Deep burgundy leather, golden embossing, thick glossy pages filled with photos, quotes, and scribbled messages of nostalgia and hope. For 6 students it was supposed to be the perfect send-off. Casey, Liam, Rosa, Jordan, Tasha, and Ben. They weren't best friends, more like satellites who had orbited the same space for 4 years. AP classes, the occasional group project, maybe detention here and there. Just enough connection to notice something strange was happening. It began during the yearbook distribution assembly. The gym buzzed with excitement. Seniors lined up like kids on Christmas morning, eager to flip through pages of memories. Casey was the first to notice something wrong. Her yearbook was oddly thin. She flipped to the prom spread. Her dress had been bright red, something you couldn't miss. Yet, she wasn't there. None of the photos had her in them. She checked the senior quotes. Under her name, a blank space. No I came, I saw, I passed with a C. Just nothing. Liam had the same problem. "Dude," he whispered, holding up his book. "My name isn't even in the track team photo. I was co-captain." One by one, the 6 of them realized they were missing. Every group photo, every club, every shout-out. Their presence had been erased. They tried brushing it off. "Printing error," Jordan said, though his voice trembled. "We'll tell the committee, they'll fix it." But then the conversations started. "I don't remember you at prom," said Macy, who danced with Liam. "When did you even join yearbook club?" asked Mr. Kramer, their advisor. "I don't think you were ever in it." Even Tasha's own cousin, who'd spent holidays with her, blinked at her with uncomfortable confusion. "You go here." By noon, panic was setting in. The 6 regrouped in the library, huddled over their yearbooks like crime scene evidence. It wasn't just a few missing photos. It was everything. As if they'd been plucked out of history and left behind like ghosts. Ben suggested confronting the yearbook committee. They have to know what happened. This isn't some typo. They headed for the journalism room, but the hallway to room 237 was eerily silent. The usual click-clack of keyboards, laughter, and chaos was gone. The door creaked open under Ben's hand. Inside, dust, cobwebs, and stacks of old yearbooks lining the walls like tombstones. A large table sat in the center of the room, covered in layers of grime. No signs of recent activity, no pizza boxes, no laptops, no students. Rosa pulled a book from the top of a nearby pile. It was dated 1977, and her hands began to shake. She flipped through the senior portrait. Toward the end of the R section, her own face stared back at her. But the name below it read, Margaret Ann Wilcox. The others scrambled to find their own. Ben, Harold Vance, Tasha, Edith Monroe, Liam, Jack Brindle, Casey, Charlotte Wells, Jordan, Frankie Dillon. Different names, same eyes, same smirks, same freckles. Their faces, exactly as they were now, perfectly preserved in a 48-year-old yearbook. This can't be real, Casey muttered, her voice cracking. Are we dead? No, Jordan said firmly. We're here. We're alive. But then how the hell are we in this book? The answer came with a creak. The mirror on the far wall, once covered in dust, began to clear by itself. Slowly, like someone wiping it clean from the other side. Casey stepped forward and gasped. Her reflection wasn't right. Her eyes were hollow. Her skin looked grayer. Her hair drooped like it was waterlogged. And her smile, she wasn't smiling, but the reflection was. Liam backed away from the mirror, but it followed him. His reflection turned its head even when he didn't, watching, grinning. What the fuck is this? Tasha whispered, pressing her back against the wall. From the hallway, a sound echoed, a heavy thump, then another, like footsteps dragging something across tile. Ben ran to the door and yanked it open. The hallway was empty. But the lockers, they were changing. One by one, names were vanishing from the metal doors. The painted name tags, the quirky senior decorations, were fading into blank steel. Rosa saw her own locker go dark. Her nameplate crumpled, curled inward, and disappeared. We have to get out of here, she whispered. We have to leave, right now. But when they ran to the front entrance, they found the doors chained shut. Not with the usual security locks, but thick, rusted chains, looped dozens of times, sealed with a padlock the size of a fist. The windows were black, not just dark, black, like they looked into another world. This isn't our school anymore, Jordan said. It's turning into something else. As they turned to run, a deep gong echoed through the building. A bell. Not the normal high-pitched school bell. This one was low and old, like a cathedral bell tolling at a funeral. Gong! Lights flickered above them. Gong! A scream rang out. Tasha. She'd turned toward the trophy case and seen herself, but not moving. A body, her body, inside the glass, wearing her cheer uniform, standing perfectly still with dead eyes and a cracked porcelain smile, as if she'd always been a part of the display. Gong! The hallway warped, floors stretched, walls darkened. Something was chasing them now, reflections that moved without them, shadows that walked ahead, whispers that called their names in other voices. Frankie, Margaret, Jack, ... Old names, names that belonged to those faces in 1977. They split up in panic. Liam and Rosa tore through the east wing, dodging flickering lights as classroom doors slammed behind them. Ben and Tasha ran toward the cafeteria, only to find the lunch tables arranged like altars, with old yearbooks stacked in pyramid shapes, and candles lit themselves in slow, ghostly flickers. Casey and Jordan headed for the auditorium, praying there might be an emergency exit, but the stage was worse. Behind the curtain stood them, themselves, but faded, pale, wearing old clothes, yearbook-style poses, frozen grins stretched too wide. Casey's copy looked directly at her. You were supposed to stay forgotten. Jordan's doppelganger whispered. They remember you now. But only because we let them. Suddenly the curtain dropped. Darkness, screaming. When the six reunited, somehow, they were shaking, crying, bloodied. This school isn't haunted, Ben said. It's alive. The yearbook doesn't capture memories. It consumes them. It's like a contract, Rosa said. If it records you, you're safe. You exist. But if it doesn't, you fade, Casey whispered. You get pulled back in, like the others. They made a pact, right there. Destroy the yearbooks. Every copy. Burn them. Bury them. Whatever it took. Back in the journalism room, they piled the old books in the center of the floor. Someone found a can of paint thinner in the art room. They lit a match. The fire roared, hotter than normal. The flames danced in unnatural ways, twisting into shapes, faces, screaming mouths, stretching fingers. The mirror on the wall cracked. The chains on the doors rattled. Somewhere deep in the school, the final bell finally rang. One long wailing note, like the howl of something dying. Then silence. By morning, the police found them huddled outside the school steps, dazed, covered in soot, holding what remained of a burnt yearbook in their hands. There was an investigation. The building was intact. No fire damage, no traces of the old yearbooks. But something had changed. Photos began reappearing. The six students were once again in the prom pictures, the senior quotes, the sports teams. But something was still off. Their faces looked older, not by much, but just enough to notice, just enough to make people uncomfortable. A few weeks later, Jordan moved away. Then Rosa dropped out of college. Ben was last seen driving west and never came home. As for Casey, Liam, and Tasha, they still meet once a year, just to make sure they're all still in the photos, still remembered, because now they know being remembered is the only thing keeping them alive. And if one day your name disappears from your yearbook or your face fades from the photos, don't ask why, don't look too closely, just run, because the yearbook of the forgotten always takes back what it loses. And this time, it remembers. North Elm High had stood for nearly a century, weather-beaten bricks, creaking floors, and the occasional draft even on windless days. But what the school had, more than anything, was stories. And the strangest of them all was Room 13. It started as a whisper. A freshman overheard a senior say it. A sophomore claimed their cousin once saw the door late at night during detention. But there were no photos, no records, and no confirmation. Ask any teacher, and they'd laugh it off. Superstitious nonsense. We don't even have a Room 13. And technically, they were right. Room numbers jumped from 12 to 14. Custodians claimed the blueprints skipped it entirely. Still, students swore they'd seen the door. Some said it was on the east wing. Others insisted it appeared in the basement. A few said they saw it open once and heard something breathing inside. But no one ever proved it. That is, until graduation week. The senior class of 2025 was buzzing with excitement. It was the final day before the ceremony. Decorations filled the gym. Teachers handed out yearbooks. Students laughed, screamed, and planned all-night parties. Phones were out. Snaps were posted. TikToks were made. By 6:30 p.m., the rehearsal had wrapped up, and the seniors were scattered across campus. A few lingered to film skits. Others hunted for signatures from favorite teachers, and some just didn't want to say goodbye yet. Then the lights flickered. It was fast. 1 second, maybe 2. A blink. But in that moment, the entire school seemed to exhale, as if something deep in the walls had stirred awake. Then came the scream. It echoed down the east hallway, raw, guttural, human. Students dropped their phones. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was a prank. But when they ran toward the sound, they found Mr. Alvarez, the longtime janitor, sprawled on the floor. His mop bucket was overturned, water pooling beneath him. His mouth was wide open, eyes glassy in shock. Blood leaked from his nose. He was dead. And behind him, where there had always been a blank stretch of wall, was a door, painted black, numbered in cracked silver, 13. It didn't take long for chaos to spread. Teachers rushed in, police were called, students were ushered out toward the parking lot, but a small group stayed behind. Curiosity always finds its victims. 6 students, Kara, the valedictorian, Matt, class clown, Jace, football captain, Naomi, quiet artist, Leah, Kara's best friend, and Brian, the YouTuber who loved urban legends. They ducked away as staff focused on crowd control. Brian filmed the whole thing on his phone, whispering into the mic, "This is it. This is room 13. We're finally going to see what's inside." Kara hesitated. "We shouldn't be doing this." Jace grinned. "We're graduating. What are they going to do? Expel us?" Brian twisted the knob. The door opened without a sound. Inside was a classroom, clean, untouched by time. Wooden desks sat in neat rows, polished to a dark sheen. The chalkboard still bore faint traces of writing. Old posters on the wall spoke of decades past. Nuclear drills, cursive handwriting guides, the metric system conversion. But it wasn't the room's vintage that froze them. It was the students, 30 of them, seated, perfectly still. Each one a mirror image of someone in their graduating class. Same faces, same clothes, same hairstyles. Naomi clutched Jace's arm. What is this?" Brian stepped closer to the front row. "That's Rachel McConnell, and holy crap, that's Chris Barlow. These are all of us." "Not all of us," Kara whispered. "Just 30, Leah counted. "There's over 200 seniors this year," Matt added. "So why these 30? Brian turned his phone toward a girl in the second row. It was his face, staring back, mouth closed, eyes open, watching. Then the lights flickered again. The door slammed shut behind them. They screamed and turned, tried the knob, locked. Brian pounded the door. "Hey, hello? Anyone out there?" But the hallway was silent. Then the air shifted. A low hum filled the room, like a generator starting up, or 1,000 voices whispering just below hearing. And then one of the copies moved. Only slightly. The version of Kara sitting near the back row blinked. Kara backed away in horror. "Did you see that? She blinked. She blinked." And then they all blinked, all 30 copies, in unison. Brian dropped his phone. Leah whispered, "Why are they watching us?" Suddenly the chalkboard started to write by itself. No chalk in sight, just lines appearing, scratchy and slow. The words read, "One of you doesn't belong." Everyone stepped back. Jace shouted, "What the hell does that mean?" More words formed. "Leave the imposter, and you may exit," Naomi gasped. They're making us choose." Matt shook his head. "This is some messed up Saw-type crap. I'm not playing their game." Brian turned to the others. "What if that's what happened before? What if this is what Room 13 does? Lures in students, makes them choose who to sacrifice." Kara snapped. "There's no imposter. We're all real." The chalkboard erased itself and wrote again. 5 minutes remain. Panic set in. They began accusing each other, half serious at first. Matt looked at Brian. "You did drag us in here." Brian glared. "You think I built this room? Are you out of your mind?" Leah muttered. "Naomi's been quiet this whole time." Naomi flinched. "Because I'm scared, not because I'm fake," Jace shouted. "What if it's like a clone thing? One of us isn't the original." Brian grabbed his phone from the floor and held it up. Facial recognition. Let's see if it picks anything up. He scanned each person. Everyone's name appeared. Until he got to Kara. No match found. Kara's face went pale. "What? That's not possible." Brian checked again. Same result. Naomi backed away. "Oh, God, it's you. No, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it's a glitch." Leah whispered. "Kara, what was the name of our 8th grade science teacher?" Kara blinked. Mrs. Henderson?" It was Mr. Gray. Kara's eyes twitched. I meant—" Brian turned the phone toward her again. Still no match. And then the chalkboard wrote. Correct. The walls groaned. The desks began shaking. The copies stood up in unison, turning their heads toward Kara, all of them. Even Kara's copy. Brian screamed, "Get to the door!" The door flew open. They ran, tearing through the hallway, past stunned staff and sobbing students. No one asked questions. No one stopped them. And behind them, room 13 vanished, as if it had never been there. 2 days later, graduation went on as planned. But 6 students were missing: Brian, Matthew, Jace, Naomi, Leah, and Kara, or whatever had been Kara. Authorities claimed the group left town on a spontaneous road trip. Social media was flooded with theories, none of them confirmed. The school shut down all discussion of room 13. Mr. Alvarez's death was ruled a medical incident, but Brian's last video survived. Only 42 seconds, uploaded automatically from his phone. It shows the 6 students entering the room, then static, then a single frame, paused, glitched, almost imperceptible, 30 students in wooden desks, and in the very front row, 6 new copies, watching, waiting.